certain fingernails but not others for playing guitar.
Right. Yeah, I've done that. Yeah.
Welcome back from lunch. So just a couple quick reminders. If you feel really strongly about something or have a comment or a question for the panel, please raise your hand and we'll bring you a mic. The other thing is that this entire event is designed to be all-inclusive for anybody who wants to come. So if you don't feel like that's happening for some reason or you feel unsafe or unwelcome or something weird happens, find someone in a blue shirt with a pear on it. They can help you out. If you can't find someone in a blue shirt, somebody at the front desk can definitely help you. So now I'm going to hand the mic over to Ariel.
Oh, yeah, no handing. Hey, how's it going, everyone? I don't need a microphone, really. So I'll hand it to Joe. My name is Ariel. I'm the co-founder of AppFigures. Instead of advertising my company, I'll just let the panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll talk about marketing.
I'm Joe Cieplinski. I work with a small independent group of developers. We're called Bombing Brain Interactive. And we make our own apps mainly. We do a little bit of consulting as well. But I'm mainly a designer, but because there's only 3 of us, we end up sharing duties on a lot of other things as well.
My name is Jay Freeman, but everyone online knows me as Sorek. I run Cydia, the alternative to the App Store on jailbroken iPhones. But in the past, in 2010, 2011, I also ran a website called Circuit, C-Y-R-K-E-T, which was the most popular way of accessing the Android market from a web browser, because the Android market did not, for whatever reason, have any way of accessing it unless you had a device in a specified country, and then you can only see comments for your country in your language. There were developers who couldn't even see their own applications. So I built a website that scraped all that content, and then I did a bunch of analytics on top of it.
Hi everyone, my name is Ouriel. I'm CEO of a co-founder of AppsFire, which is a native or an ad network, to say it simply. We just make better ads that look beautiful and that make your app look a little bit better and pay better too. And prior to that, we were doing app discovery, which is an activity that we stopped end of last year.
Cool, so where do we begin? I guess in the beginning. So you all watched the keynote, and you know the App Store changed massively, or will change massively with iOS 8, and a lot of that really relates to how people find your apps. How many of you are app developers? Oh, silly question. How many of you are actually concerned about marketing and making sure your app is found in the App Store? Worry about that every day? Oh, cool, cool. So pretty much everyone, which kind of makes sense again. So we're going to talk about the things that changed, the major shifts from the old App Store, and how they are actually going to affect discovery in the App Store and what we think will make more sense or less sense. So I think the biggest thing that changed, for me at least, is bundles. Would you agree? And for all of us, I think, have you all seen, I'll describe bundles. So bundles are Apple's way, oops.
That was a bundle.
That was a phone on the floor. But it's an iPhone, so it's okay. So bundles are a way of grouping your apps together into a bundle that is sold for less price. Cheaper is the word I'm looking for. And to me, that means that now if I have an iOS app, an iPhone app, and an iPad app, and I want to sell both together, I can offer a $5 off coupon technically. And I think that's going to be a great driver of downloads. And that's going to increase my revenue, my bottom line. I'll start with you because you have apps in many different sections. What do you think?
Yeah, it's actually, the bundles may have come in handy for us if they had come a little sooner. We just did a relaunch of one of our major apps, and it had been a separate iPhone and iPad app, and we just made it universal. We may have rethought that with the idea of the bundle in mind. And one of the reasons why we put it together is that the iPhone version hadn't sold. It's a teleprompter app, by the way. And for obvious reasons, the iPad's more popular for using it as a teleprompter. We were getting some sales on the phone, but not as many as we would like. And we just thought, well, a lot of people are using the phone for a remote anyway. Why don't we just bundle this together into a single unified app? And I think with the bundles, it would have given us an opportunity to kind of keep those two separate apps and yet offer the phone almost for free. We could have bundled it in there, or made it an extra $1 or $2, and that could have been a new opportunity. So I'm excited about that for the future. Even cross-promoting apps. It's funny. I spent the last 4 years basically trying to tell indie devs, don't use the App Store as your marketing platform. It's the store. It's where you are. It's the shelf you're on. It's not a marketing strategy per se. But I think a lot of what Apple gave us this year in the App Store, some of these changes are going to make it more possible to get marketing, and part of that, cross-promotion. I think when when a user comes to your page and they happen to find one of your apps and they see it's also available as part of a bundle, that's a really good way for them to draw and discover your other apps that you didn't have before.
Agree. I have a quick follow-up question, but I would love to hear your response after this. So would you actually rethink splitting up the apps again?
I haven't spoken with my business partners yet, but I don't know. It depends.
I'm not going to hold you to it.
It depends on how we can do that logistically without hurting our users. So the ones who already have bought it, as long as there's a way for us to credit the people who already have it. I don't know. There's a lot of confusion. We were talking about this earlier before the panel surrounding bundles. If I've already bought one of the apps in the bundle, can I complete my purchase kind of thing? Which it sounds like they're going to let us do. But I think there's a lot of customer potential confusion there that we would want to make sure that was all settled before we did that split again. But yeah, I found this ironic because Apple even has been encouraging us to make apps universal on iOS for a long time, and this gives us a really strong encouragement, I think, to split them back up. But.
Absolutely. Yep.
So Cydia is the alternative to the App Store I mentioned. I actually support a number of different pricing models, and so I was very interested when I saw the bundle one, because the bundle is one that I actually have set up in a way, like the way that my pricing management works, I can implement bundles without terribly much difficulty, but I usually choose not to, and I have nigh unto decided to never support it when developers come to me with it. And so I was very curious to see what kinds of limitations Apple was adding in order to make that work. And the reasons why were some. So I was a person who earlier, when we were talking beforehand, brought up the confusion with relation to you buy something before you got the bundle, and then you try to get the bundle, and then users are like trying to get refunds for the product that they purchased before, and there was like it was only 2 hours ago I got it, and so you end up with a lot of issues there.
A lot of bugs.
Yeah, I'm distracted. What was I thinking? You end up with scenarios where I don't remember what I was saying at all.
Issues where people want refunds.
Yeah, so you get situations where people want refunds, and you get situations where and then especially with if you have like two developers or have similar products, you do bundles, you end up in scenarios where, well, how do I handle the payouts that are required for that? We have had a bundle actually in Cydia for the last 5 years, which was a download manager for Safari and a file manager that allowed you to browse those downloads. And they coordinated between them that if you bought the file manager second, he would get less money because the other guy had gotten a payout for the other part of the product and things for doing like complete my bundle sort of issues. But it sounds like maybe the App Store is going to only do it within a single developer. Like. So I was interested in seeing what limitations they added in order to make this less confusing for both themselves, the users, and the developers. Yeah.
Interesting.
All right, so I'm going to be the devil's advocate here. So first, I think bundles will probably suffer from the same problem of that apps have suffered in the first place with app discovery. Is that bundles themselves will have to get discovered. So of course there will be some cross promotion, but we all know the conversions of cross promotion. That's not going to be enough. And so more generically, I would say that most of the announcements that have been made by Apple about the changes in iOS set of regarding app discovery are mostly, some are not, but mostly cosmetic. And I'm not very bullish on the fact that's going to affect dramatically the discovery of most apps for two reasons. There are two things that I didn't hear that would have been dramatically important for app discovery is the way they're going to handle top ranks and the algorithms of how an app appears in the top ranks, which is a key factor to discovery. And the number two is the way they are not going to handle yet personalization, which means that the store will be the same for everyone, no matter what you like or you don't like. You'll have to go by Apple's path versus what Google is trying to do right now, which is putting more focus on what you're supposed to like, which was the hope of the former Genius, which was killed in favor of a Nearby, which was killed, hopefully, for a better Explore, which will be, unfortunately, monolithical to everyone, meaning that we all see the same thing. So for me, everything gets a little bit incrementally better, better app search, a little bit better app search, but what about the algorithm? A little bit better, kind of deep categories browsing, but what about personalization? But the review system will be the same, the gaming, the possibility to game them will be the same. Bundles is an incremental improvement to do marginal revenues, but it doesn't solve, I think, discovery at the core.
I have two quick follow-ups. You should probably keep the microphone. So Apple did say that they're going to aggregate ratings from all the apps. So my thought is that when it comes to ranks, they're not going to rank them at all. How is that going to help discovery? It's not going to help by much. I think it's only going to help by finding you when users search for one of your apps. The cool thing about that, though, is now you get keywords from all these apps squished into one. So I think you will get more discovery than you could with a single app.
It's true.
The question of whether they will actually use that to weigh where your particular apps are going to rank, I think that's an open question. I'm not really sure.
But that's the important one.
And we'll see.
Yeah, what are the signals that they are not taking into account today that they could take into account because they have the data to improve the way apps are surfacing? And for me, it's all about quality scoring. Ratings, if they are legitimate and not cheated, and we all know that there can be all kind of way played.
They're hard to actually fake.
Oh, they're not.
Well,
you want a live example?
Go for it.
At scale, just look app number 9 or 8 in the App Store right now. Mm-hmm. I hope the developer is not here, but never mind.
Are you here, developer?
It's called Better Fonts, and it's got 22,000 5-star rating in less than a month, meaning more than Facebook in all its history. And they do it by kind of promising new features if you drop a 5-star review, and they force that in a pop-up that opens each time you open the app. If you don't call that gaming...
That's true. Edgy, the question is, does it stick? Does it stick for a long time? And we've seen that it hasn't. I actually gave a talk a few months ago about the fact that it doesn't stick when you buy ratings and when you buy ranks.
Oh, no, if you buy, no. But if you
game them in, I guess, in an organic way, yeah,
exactly.
It does do something.
So for me, the question is, do they look at all the quality signal, like the reviews, if they are not cheated, of course, the quality of the app itself, right? All the reviews that are written by all the great blogs, etc. Are they looking at what people say on Twitter, on Facebook, about their perception of an app?
You mean for ranks?
For the quality of the app,
okay.
How it's perceived, and not just what Apple thinks about it, right? Other people. So that really, for me, matters. And an uninstall rate, for example.
Of course.
We know Google does that, but Apple, I'm not sure.
Jay, you actually build App Store, so how would you do it? I'm curious.
A comment that I'll make is that ratings mathematically have no meaning. And so a 5-star rating to different people has different boundary points. If you were to construct a histogram of, I think it's a compounding histogram or whatever, of at what point in quality you switch from 1-star to 2-star, and you build a graph out of that, everyone's graph looks different. Some people have systems. Like I have a system on Netflix where if I really liked it so much, I'm going to watch it multiple times. Then it's 5 stars. If I've only watched it once, it's 4 stars. If I don't mind that I watched it, it's 3 stars. If I wished I didn't watch it, it was 2 stars. If I failed to finish it, it's 1 star. Most people don't systemize like that. And even then, it's like, well, is my gap between 2 and 3 really the same as my gap between 1 and 2? No, it's really not. So the mechanism that people use of averaging these things ends up leading you to mathematical garbage. When you can do is better is you can ask people for multiple kinds of ratings, like judge the design, the implementation quality, and the functionality of this application. And then people will end up getting they'll start thinking and breaking down what they're doing, but you still have the mathematical problem of these individual quantities. So I don't really personally have much interest in having a better rating mechanism that's going to allow people to see top products. I think that when you've got hundreds of thousands of things and you've got these tiny differences between 4.42 and 4.36 because of the mathematical algorithm issues, I think leading you to the top 10 of a category with 70,000 things in it, I'm not certain it's really going to help you.
I completely agree. What I meant is more when I'm exposed to an app, is it good or not? So I just want a simple signal that tells me, and that's reliable. Like for me, the perfect example is what Metacritic has managed to do for books, movies, and games. Right? You got a rating, 1 to 100, and it's good or it's not good. Period.
Mind if I just so when I go and stay at a hotel, the thing that I care about is whether the room smells and whether the mattress is comfortable. And the reason why, I don't even care how noisy it is. I wear earplugs at night. I don't care if the windows, like the drapes don't work, because I actually wear a blindfold at night. I typically am not in my room because I'm usually at a conference, and so I show up, I get to my room at 3 in the morning, and then I leave again at 9 in the morning. But different people have different things that they really like. So when you read reviews and ratings of hotels, a lot of people care tremendously about the swimming pool. They care tremendously about whether there are things that their kids can be doing, and it's like a different type of goal for what you're doing with the hotel. A lot of ratings are about the guy at the front desk, who, from my perspective, I interacted with for 30 seconds, was really mean, and I no longer ever want to go to this hotel again. And so now when you take all these different factors of what people actually care about, I think that you can't get like a score of what's good, because even from my perspective, it's like I care about the different the smell and the mattress I might care about somewhat differently, and so yeah, so I really feel for your comment though earlier about personalization. Like if I could just find ratings of hotels by people who care about the same kinds of things that I do, it would be more useful. Although then ratings still, but yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten into massive arguments with people on Twitter because I tell, I don't know, you guys all participate in Rate Friday on Twitter. I'm always trying to remind people, go rate some apps because the indies really need your help. And,
Oh, you are the guy who did that?
but I didn't start it. Luke Vandal started it. But I do it every Friday, like religiously. But what I get in arguments with people about is I say, if I like an app, it's 5 stars. If I don't like an app, I don't rate it. And people are like, well, that's not fair mathematically, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, you give an app a 4-star rating because it's like not perfect. You just gave it an 80. That's a C minus. I'm like, really? Like this app that you love, but it's missing one feature, that's a C minus? So I've just figured my 5 stars are offsetting all the 1 stars from people who are, throwing off. And people get so mad because they're so concerned about the math. And exactly, the math is 100% meaningless. I can't remember the last time a rating of an app affected my decision whether to buy it at all. I just don't look at ratings at all. So yeah, I mean that whole thing it's just, to me, I couldn't care less what people I don't know care about something else. Like when you were saying they replaced Near Me with this new Explore thing, I agree with you 100%. What I wanted to see was my friends, what are the people who I know and I trust, what have they bought in the last month and what do they think of these apps? I would have loved to see something like that. I'd love to see the App Store get more customized to my preferences because I'm an oddball. I never like what the average person likes. Top charts mean nothing to me. Again, I don't care what most people are buying. I care about the apps that are going to help me. So, yeah, I would absolutely love to see that happen. And Apple's, like you said, they're getting better, but I don't think we're quite there yet.
Yes, that's good. I guess that's a good segue to... one more point?
But I do have there was one announcement that was made that I think is very, very important to App Discovery, and it's not related to the store, at least not directly. I think it's what they've done with iTunes Connect and the data that you're going to get of how users find your app and how they convert from your App Store page. Because until now, it was kind of gray smoke about this kind of App Store optimization company. No one was really knowing.
There was no smoke. It was completely blocked off. We didn't have any information.
I mean, I'm trying to be not too hard, but frankly, now knowing that search drives so many installs, or coming from your desktop, or coming from this ad campaign, and get it natively in iTunes Connect, is not going to improve the discovery, but make developers a lot more aware of what doesn't work, what can be A/B tested, what can be improved, and put those tools in their hand. That data is important.
Yeah, you jumped the gun a little bit. That was my segue.
Oh, well, that's not, we have nearly the same name, so we have to think nearly the same way.
Same brains. So what I was actually going to jump into is, okay, so we have these bundles and we have these ratings, and you go on the store, but up until now, we didn't actually know what happened on the store. What happens on the store stays on the store, sort of thing. And when Apple opened iTunes Connect, if any of you saw the iTunes Connect session, what they do now is they actually enable us to see the number of views that the page has seen, and also how those views convert into actual sales. And not only that, they actually show us retention over time, which I think is really, really good. And I think that's going to enable all developers to actually, one, put it in the back of their mind. Now you need to worry about how many people see my page, and is my page good? So
yeah, that's the number one piece of data I've always wanted, is who comes to that page on the iTunes Store and doesn't click buy.
Exactly, and why?
And why? And and especially now, we'll get into the preview stuff later, but like who watched the movie of my preview, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, this is, how do I know if I need to tweak my description or if my price is too high or whatever? If I was lucky enough to get them to the store, which I've got my own website, but most people are getting to the App Store, as far as I can tell, there's a heck of a lot more people buying my app than are actually coming to my website. Most of the people coming to my website seem to be coming after they bought the app. They want more information. They want to go find support. And so, if you're lucky enough to get the press to notice you and they write a review of your app, you're going to want them to actually have a link directly to the App Store, not to your page first, because then they're going to get lost on their way to the App Store. So, most of the better bloggers and everything, they'll link directly to the App Store. So I'll get a review on The Loop or on Mac Stories and things like that, and I have no idea how many hits I'm getting as a result of that particular one. Is that the one I want to go back to next time and push for another review? So yeah, all that data is absolutely mind-blowingly wonderful. I mean, it's like Apple could have just given us that this year, and I would have been happy.
Absolutely. What experience do you have with analytics on Cydia, Jay?
So Cydia has a number of APIs that are available. So one of the things when I was building Cydia is I really wanted to target developers, the kinds of business models that they would want to be able to have. So as I mentioned earlier, I support a number of different pricing models. So I support the ability to do upgrade pricing, things like that. But I also, from my perspective, being able to sell something on a different platform and then be able to give a customer a discount on this platform is important. So I constructed APIs for doing a lot of things. And these APIs allow developers to get access to rosters of customers. You get when somebody sees your product, you get an encrypted per session salted device identifier that you can then later use in order to check to see whether or not that request converted into a purchase. So I've got all of these different mechanisms by which, and so actually people have actually constructed like tools on top of this. So people have apps you can actually download on your phone that use the API in order to then provide graphs and things based on all of the types of data I provide. The customer information that I give you also has things about location of where people are purchasing from. There are various tax reasons I originally had to do this, but then it was like, my God, there's this really interesting analytics use case for all of this data. So I think that analytics are really interesting and really important.
I would agree.
I think it would be clearly he would agree. Yeah, I've actually been kind of waiting for app stores to go that extra mile and provide more of this kinds of experience and more of this kinds of ways of tying things together to developers. And it's good to see when people add at least even an integrated feature. But I would really prefer to see something that really makes the system into a platform for developers, because to some extent these are your customers, and they're not my customers. They used my store to buy your product. They didn't like my store necessarily. They wanted your product. They installed my store to get your product. They're your customer, not my customer. So why am I the person who's the only person who has access to the analytics information?
That's obviously a very different philosophy from Apple. And it looks like things are changing a little bit. Actually, give me a question for you. What do you think? Do you think there's ever a chance? I mean, obviously, all these new analytics are all within iTunes Connect. Do you think there's ever a chance Apple will actually give us an API where a third party could tap into this information?
I would love that. I would love nothing less. So for the last 5 years, we've been actually tracking the App Store. If none of you know AppFigures, it's an App Store analytics platform that ties into not just iTunes Connect, but also Google Play and Amazon, and grabs all your information and puts it in one place. And the idea is that you can do these sort of things that Jay's talking about, but without the tools from Apple. So now that we have these tools from Apple, I think we'll see a lot more need for them. But the problem with iTunes Connect, the new iTunes Connect, I should say, is that it barely grazes the surface from what I've seen. So it just gives us a little bit of a taste. So I think and the bigger picture is still kind of blurry to me, even though I can see how many people saw my page and I can see how many people actually converted. There's so many more things that I want to see. I want to see specific versions of descriptions tested in the App Store, A/B testing, and more that I can expand on. And I think just having that data is going to allow companies like us to actually grab it even without an API and provide more insightful, actionable metrics with it. So I think in the long term, we might see an API similar to how AutoIngest does it for sales reports. But I think in the near term, we're now going to see it come in as an API, just as a closed Apple tool.
Yeah, just ask yourself how many APIs Apple provide to date for data collection. You're not going to find many.
Well, technically, they don't even have one real API. Yeah. They have a Java service.
What many companies do, like App Annie and others, is they basically scrap the data. So there's no other way. Or you use just the basic RSS feed that iTunes give, which is number one unreliable, and number two skip limited to just
500 results.
Even less. So so it, they chunk it over time. But I think it's a granular. I mean, from what I understood, it's actually a little more granular than just like kind of the first overview. I think you can even track at a campaign ID level, meaning like if you do, for example, if you buy an ad or if you do a barter with someone and you create this specific link, you will be able to track that specific link.
That's what I said, yeah.
In iTunes Connect, exactly. And therefore, so for example, if you got an article in the loop, you will be able to see the referrals from the loop, and you will know that, maybe you pay the sponsored post on the loop, whatever, more than an ad on Facebook, but that's really worth because the users coming from there are dropping a lot more money in your app than the average, right?
Of course. I think that's going to be, I think at the end of the day, developers are really gaining a lot just by seeing this, and what other companies do with it, whether through an API or not, is going to give them even more. Just the first step.
So you think ultimately then that perhaps giving us a taste of this will help companies like you when they feel like I'm only getting this much, now I'm going to want.
Absolutely, and I think that's exactly what happened when the App Store first started. Apple gave us something, an old and ugly CSV, and people wanted to visualize it, so they came to us, and then they gave us a little bit more, and people wanted to see hourly ranks. Gave us a little bit more, people want to see reviews, and they wanted to search reviews. And today you can't search reviews in the App Store as a developer. You can come to us, and we'll give you a really good search engine, but ideally that would come directly from the store. Not even Google does that, and Google is trying to stay ahead. So I think as far as tools, we're going to see more. And I was speaking to one Apple developer today, and they said that Apple's seeing developer tools as a product now. So I do think, as a product. And when Apple sees something as a product, it will be amazing at some point in the future. And I'm sure they have a 5-year plan for it. So I do see it as happening. Not necessarily the route of the APIs, though. That's just my take.
I agree. I don't think
on the subject of APIs, I guess completely unrelated, one of the things that I was actually interested in is that search is now going back to vertical as opposed to horizontal. When I saw it going to horizontal on iOS 7, I really hated it. I just don't, something about horizontal scrolling just kind of irks me. I will look at the first 2 or 3 results and then I kind of give up. Do you have the same experience?
Yeah, I figure anything that's not in the top 3 results is pretty much getting ignored at this point, probably, and that really sucks for most of us who've been in that position where we were like, we just relaunched an app, so we went from the #1 result from teleprompter, and the day we launched, because it was a brand new app, because we can't do upgrade pricing, we shot to 33, and so we were invisible. Luckily, we had enough sales through other marketing efforts to get us back to like #7 on the first day, and then we've been crawling up. We're bouncing between like 3 and 7, and none of us really fully understands that algorithm. It's sort of hidden what Apple does with search. But I don't know if whatever it is they're using is the most effective thing, because 90% of the time I don't bother searching on the App Store. What I get are results for tons of things I don't want most of the time. And so as a user, I don't like search, but I'm very happy about the vertical scrolling. I think that'll definitely help me at least find apps better.
Yeah, so we have some experience with App Search because we've generated something like 500 million search queries with AppsFire. So we've seen what people are doing. So it's true, number one, completely agree. I think horizontal scrolling was a big mistake. Actually, it's the legacy of the acquisition that they've made of Jump, which actually itself never got any kind of serious traction. And they still decided to apply it, which was a strong mistake. But that's a different topic. They fixed it now, they understood. So they did some cosmetic changes. So now, up until now, the very first screenshot was critical. So now you will be able to see 2 screenshots and have a better idea of the app.
Possibly a video and a screenshot.
Possibly a video. I'm not sure about that. I haven't seen.
They didn't touch on it.
We will see when it's like. I haven't seen it yet, but at least 2 screenshots, that's for sure. But there is one critical thing that is missing, and they still haven't got it. It's that people don't have time to browse lists, no matter our vertical or everything. They've improved the speed of display, and there is only one way to do it, is by providing quick one-tap filter to results. Meaning, like, for example, you're going to search teleprompter, right? But some people will be interested only in paid apps, right? They won't fill up because they know that if they get free, they're gonna get ads and whatever. So I want a filter that's in one tap, give me paid apps, and only those. But that's an elementary one. If you go to more sophisticated, like, one of the most popular query in the App Store is games. Like, it's number 1, number 2, depending on the period. People are just going to look for games. And then what? Are you going to browse a list of 200,000 games? There's no way on earth. Just provide me like the one tap, super intelligently designed UX of filtering. Like for example, Foursquare does when you're looking for. I don't know if you're looking using Foursquare search, which is amazing. But like this kind of one-tap easy access filter to search, they haven't done that. I was very disappointed. They could not provide kind of this easy way of getting access to the long tail of results.
Well, that goes back to the customization we talked about before.
Yes.
And I think if they could customize that, the search will also get customized, and then have a much nicer experience.
True, there is the kind of a priori personalization, which is, well, we know you don't want games, so we're not going to show you games in results. But then there is the a posteriori, which is, okay, we know you want games, but now we understand that there is kind of hardcore games and puzzle games, and we're going to provide you that.
Exactly.
So in a way, they do it with related keywords, but that's not enough. That's not enough. We already know that.
Yeah, there's a lot to be added there. The search.
Yeah, and even between paid and free, I'm starting to run into trouble now because I'm one of those people that just only show me paid. But now there's a lot of good apps that are coming out that are freemium, but in a free trial kind of way. Like you get to do a few things and then just go buy it. To me, that's a paid app. They're just happening to let me play with it for a little bit for free. And so how would I filter it so that I could see those apps, but not the ones that are selling me Smurfberries? I don't know.
Yeah, one elementary it's so obvious. I don't understand they do it. Is I would just want, for example, to see just the new apps. Show me just the newest app for that query, right? I want the ultimate app designed for iOS 8 and not the other one, right? Just show me that, or provide me a way to find it very quickly.
Or one that has or an app that's been updated at least in the last 3 months. Yeah.
Exactly.
I hope Apple's listening to this. Good ideas.
Please. No, but they do listen, right? I mean, they've shown at this WWDC, they've shown at this conference that they clearly listen. They just can't roll it everything at once. So the good news, the signal they're sending with this conference is that they are listening and they are willing to go, in the direction. But it's just like still miles away from where it needs to go.
Do you think that search trends is a step in the right direction then?
Yeah, I do think so. Yeah, that's something we also introduced like 2 years ago, and I think it's important. But again, it's like top ranks. Who cares that Flappy Bird is number one if you're not going to play ever Flappy Bird? Popularity and relevance are two diametrically opposed things, right? So, and popularity and quality are also not relevant. Like if you look at the top 10 right now, not all the majority of them it's a toilet game and they're fun and they're incredibly casual, but they're far from being Apple Design Award type of apps, right? So it's good to have the trending search, but trending according to popularity doesn't mean that it's relevant to me.
Of course. What do you think, Jay, about trending searches and similar sort of functionalities that kind of try to achieve customization, but they don't? Or show you what your friends do?
Nice leading question.
As if I try.
Yeah, so actually, search is an area that I don't know as much about because Cydia has got this kind of handicap where all of this searching has to be done on the device. And so I'm limited in the amount of memory, CPU, disk that I can do for indexing. I love building search algorithms, and it's like I'm not allowed to build a search algorithm because it all has to be done on the device.
Well, let's say you had to, and you could go, what would be your ideal sort of algorithm for searches?
Honestly, well, I mean, the thing is I believe in collaborative filtering algorithms, which leads to this personalization type issue. I am interested in seeing results that are related to things that people similar to me wanted, and so that actually, if you do that well enough, you actually get some of these other things for free. It's like if you don't like free applications because they've got tons of ads in them, and so you never install them, and you continually say no to them every time they come up, then you're going to end up in a cluster of users that don't like that kind of app. And so when you do the searches, you're going to automatically only see the things that are similar to, like, that don't have the free, weird, spammy ads. Absolutely. And then it solves a problem you mentioned, which is that's not, like, paid versus free isn't even the right metric to use for that, because some of the free apps are actually paid apps with trials, and some of the free apps don't have ads, and we're just free, and you like them still. And so so you would solve a lot of these problems, but it's the kind of thing where if you've seen like the Netflix prize competition from 2006, 2007, there's a bunch of really interesting discussion about how to try to predict users' ratings, and of course they spent a lot of time on the mathematical ratings problems because the problem was defined poorly in a way. there are all these different algorithms for doing this, and not all of them are necessarily that great, but even applying one of the ones that's only sort of okay to this problem, I think, would move us much closer to something that would be good. And like, I would love to sit around implementing this for Cydia, but I don't have a centralized
Not yet.
catalog. Well, I can't because it's a distributed system.
That gives me a great idea, just thinking about how apps are so much different in games. But I think we should probably stick to what's currently happening in the App Store. A lot more interesting than theoretical talks. So one of the newer, I guess, smaller things are that the search is now organic, or not organic. What is the word I'm thinking about? That keeps on going. Continuous scrolling. Do you think that's actually going to change anything? Do you think people are going to look through a larger number of apps?
I think the vertical list is more important.
Of course.
I think we've been
now
finding.
That we have that, of course.
If you look at web, yeah, now that we have it, but I think that web design trends are going in that direction with the continuous scrolling. People are getting used to the concept. I hate it, like on things like Facebook, because it always makes me feel like there's something more, which means I can't stop doing it, which is exactly what they want. And then I feel like I'm being manipulated, and then I get upset. But scrolling is not a barrier for a lot of people, and so I think as long as you're doing this, you'll look at 20 entries, 30 entries faster than you would have with the swipe each card individually. But yeah, on and on. If you're in the pack of 20 and beyond, then I think you're pretty much screwed regardless.
I agree.
So for me, there are two muscles that are important in search result experience on the mobile. Is the thumb muscle and the eye kind of brain muscle. So for the thumb muscle, it's going to be delightful, like just to do that rather than doing that, which was real pain. So that's a big plus and going to drive people to be exposed to more results. But from the eye brain kind of point of view, you can be exposed to so much results about a piece of software where the signals to make a decision are so limited. So on what are you going to base your decision? On the icon, on the price, a couple of screenshots, and then you're going to deep dive in one of them, and then you have to tap back, right, into this list again. So the thumb is going to suffer if you want to browse a lot of results. Unfortunately, I cannot demo it. Maybe you can see some demos on YouTube, but we found the solutions on how to do that by minimizing kind of the efforts of the thumb and the eye. And basically, you would just like tap icons, and you would be exposed to a lot of more information. But by just doing that, you would be able to see 5, 6, 7 results. And what we learned is that people are kind of lazy, and rightly so. On the mobile, they are not willing to be exposed to too much information. So, two things: the number of signals are limited. The browsing experience when you want to deep dive into more than 2-3 apps is going to be painful. And I think, therefore, it's important. Two things are important, and I have not heard from Apple any kind of different directions, is how the search algorithm is changing with iOS 8. I don't think it's going to be different.
Well, they never say anything about how
exactly.
the search algorithm changes, so we'll see.
So, for example, you probably remember that when Secret came out, and it was talked about in every single blog and whatever, no matter what you think of Secret, you were searching for Secret in the App Store, and there was no way to find it. No way. You could browse forever. So are they handling better, like a new trending, apps that are worth the attention? Number two, what kind of signals are they computing to highlight? Until recently, when you were searching Twitter, the number one app was not Twitter, right? Now they do, right? But what do they do with kind of not hit queries? I don't know. I did improve that, we'll know. And number three, well, there's no number 3.
Well, that was
maybe
easy.
There is, but I'm too tired.
Well, then again.
So I think it's better. But I think it's not going to be. Again, it's a cosmetic change. It's not a deep change into how it's going to affect discovery.
Well, I think up until recently, or up until iOS 7, they didn't really have any amazing search algorithm. They bought Chomp, and I think they just recently added them to it. So it improved drastically in iOS 7, and I think we'll see a lot more of that coming in iOS 8. But they didn't talk about it, and I don't think they ever will. But one thing they did add that I found funny, just the naming, is live previews. It's a video. Why is it called a live preview? But what do you think about live previews?
I think the naming is on purpose. They don't want us to make a marketing video. They don't want us to make a commercial. They want us to make an actual screen capture of the actual app in play. They've seen what happened with screenshots, how we're all doing these like super beautiful promo shots. And I think they want to try to control it. This is the old Apple trying to control the message. And I think that will change over time too. But for now, I'm just pleased that I can show. I mean, iOS 7 made a lot of apps look, if you just showed a screenshot, they looked kind of plain. And that was part of the design, and you didn't really get a sense of what it was like to use the app. And a video still isn't exactly like holding it in your hands, but it's a step in the right direction.
It's a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, to actually watch these cool animations happen and to be able to see, it's going to help, in particular, certain kind of apps. One app that I made on my own, this little timer app, it just looks ridiculous when you just look at a screenshot of a big number on the middle of the screen. But when you actually see it moving around, you actually see how you can interact with it. I think that's going to make a big difference. So I'm real pleased about that.
So I can say from experience, it's going to be awesome. So Cydia has every package as a web page associated with it that you can that is actually all of the information, including the description, screenshots, etc., are just being shown. So you can completely customize everything that you have on that. And I made certain in Cydia that if you have a YouTube video, the YouTube video plays correctly. If you have embedded MOV, it'll play correctly. Some people use animated GIFs or animated GIFs for doing the little previews, and so that's kind of cool because when you're scrolling through the description, you'll like see a paragraph of description and then a tiny little animated GIF showing that one feature in play, and then you can keep going down and scrolling through, having that ability to actually see how the app works. Because it's the interaction experience with the app always, and that's going to end up being frustrating or not in the end, is really powerful.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's an important cosmetic change. We actually, it will sound funny, but we introduced that 2 years ago too. Someone at Apple must have looked at us. We were basically auto-detecting a YouTube link that most developers put in their description, and we were just rendering the YouTube video in the discovery experience in one tap. And we saw that people were really using it. So I think that's something that's a real plus. I think anyone involved in video production or video app demos is sitting on a gold mine right now. So a lot of companies are going to make crazy money just have a request for app demos. You can do it at home, but it's never going to look the same. So attention to details in videos will be interesting. I really wonder how Apple is going to scale the review. I mean, it's easy to scale the review of screenshots. I mean, you just see if they put something funny in there, but how are they going to scale the review of videos, which, I'm not sure how much they're going to last. They didn't disclose that.
They did not disclose anything. Also, what are the guidelines?
Exactly. So I'm sure there is something, but it's not going to be less than 5 seconds. Multiply that by 1 million. There's no way they're going to review. So you may be putting all sorts of crazy stuff in your video, and we know there are shady developers in the App Store. No, they're not. But how are they going to scale that, or is it going to have more freedom? And the other thing that's important is what's the experience going to be like? So it's not just like, for me, the ideal experience would be you have a video preview, you see the video, and right there, in the video, you have kind of this download button, right there. You don't need another 2 taps to close the video, go back, download, install. So if they could provide that, that's really great. If what you have to do is like watch them, boom, and close after 5 seconds, whatever, and do that X number of times, then the average user will not want to be exposed to too much video because it's a lot of time each time you expose to a video. But overall, I think it's a great news. I don't know if they will provide also iTunes Connect data on that.
It doesn't look like it.
Not yet.
Okay,
yeah, not yet.
All right, maybe
iOS
one
9.
day. But overall, I think it's a good thing. And by the way, Google has been doing it for a year now or something, right?
Even more, actually.
Even more, right? So,
yep.
So it's just like they're just catching up.
Of course.
Yeah, so what was it, Monument Valley? What movie? There was a game out there that they actually put a video in.
Yeah, it was Natural Motion.
Clumsy Ninja, that's the one, yeah. So yeah, it's kind of funny. Apple's and I remember a few people, Vitici from Mac Stories was writing about how the search, the trending search things was starting to pop up on some people's machines, and it's like they're kind of like showing their hand a little bit here and there, like.
Yeah.
And yeah, when we all saw that, we're thinking, okay, Apple's experimenting with it, and obviously they're going to collect some data on that and see how it affected sales, and it probably was massive for the Clumsy Ninja thing. So I think they saw it as something they have to do, but like Apple, they're going to roll it out cautiously, and so that's probably why we're not going to get analytics yet, but I can see that down in the future, how many people loaded this video, how many people watched it to the end, and so on and so forth. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see a lot of ad networks today doing video specifically, have a lot of metrics around videos, how many times that, I mean, you can probably talk about advertising and videos.
Yeah, I'm not going to say great things because unfortunately, no, but I tell you why. I mean, I think, some do great job and I think it's, it's important. There is one problem with video advertising with apps is that they work only if the viewing is incentivized. Otherwise, naturally, people won't say, "Hey, I will really want to watch."
Well, it's an actual commitment watching a video. It's a commitment watching a video.
Yeah, but so it really works in terms of getting the user to really watch the video if you give them something in exchange, like a virtual currency or free in-app purchase. Otherwise, people don't say, "Hey, I really want to watch a video right now about a new app that I don't know in the middle of the game that I really like."
Exactly.
That's not a natural behavior. So I'm kind of and naturally I don't like too much the incentivized advertising model. But there are some companies that do it extremely well, not so much in terms of advertising, but creating amazing trailers of their app and using it like, for me, an app is like a movie. So, and by the way, it's not by chance that an app store is part of iTunes. It's another piece of media, and they really consider launching an app like launching a movie or launching a music. And that's maybe why they call it live preview, is because it's kind of a trailer, right? And so I'm trying to remember of one company that done it great. You probably heard about Mailbox. It's been acquired by Dropbox. I personally don't like Mailbox, but their trailer was really, really well done. Like movie quality, HD ready. You look at this video and you say, I will really want to try it. So it creates the desire. So for that purpose, in terms of app marketing, I think a great video does a really good job.
And I think that's actually going to be a problem. I've seen a lot of videos, especially on Google Play, that has video support, and most of them suck. They're really bad. They're terrible bad. I look at them and I'm just disgusted. How do we prevent that in the App Store?
Yeah,
or how does Apple prevent that in the App Store?
The problem is it costs a lot of time and money to make video trailers at this quality. I mean, a company like Sandwich Video, which is kind of the most famous in the space, will charge anywhere between $20,000 and $50,000 for like this kind of level of quality. Not everyone is raising millions of dollars or making millions of dollars at first. So you go to the second tier, the kind of $2,000, $5,000 video, and they all look kind of this funny and comics. They all look the same.
Template-y.
And you don't want to watch 10 seconds of that. And then the third thing is to do it by yourself. So you're either good at it, or you're using tools like Reflector or Ximage that replicates your iPhone and you record it from the computer. And now I've seen that in Yosemite, Apple will provide the way to do that, to record your.
That's
so
it's,
unfortunately, I'm afraid that it's going to mean a lot more crappy video because So I think whoever has the knowledge to do at scale video for apps of decent quality is sitting on a gold mine.
business advice, everyone.
Yeah, but I do think
no NDAs required.
I think there's no chance with the million apps on the App Store that we're not going to see a lot more bad videos than good videos.
Absolutely.
And there'll still be some people who just don't do a video. But I don't think that's a downside for the users because again, if you just don't watch the video, you're not being forced to watch every one of these videos. You're clicking on them. It's an intentional.
You don't know if it's going to be bad or if it's going to be good.
Well, yeah, but if it's bad, you don't buy the app, and then
That's
so
true.
you get rewarded for having a good video. You get punished for not having a good video. I think
That's
that will
also true.
play out in the long run, more so than I'm not too worried about that. I'm not going to be clicking on a lot of videos unless I really want to see them. But yeah, that might change my mind a lot faster than a low review. If I see a really crappy video, I might be like, "Ooh, I thought this was going to be a good app. Never mind."
Oops.
Yeah. So yeah, you're almost better off just having screenshots than having a bad video. I think.
Exactly. I'm really curious to see how Apple will actually respond to bad videos. I want to see if they will outright just say, nope, you're not allowed in because of, section 5482 or something like that.
Yeah, your video just stinks. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
They are subject to review, and that's the other thing for me is my app going to get held up because the review team hasn't watched the video yet? Do we know if that's separate? Is the metadata a separate review from the app itself? Like, if I get a critical bug I've got to get through, but I also happen to pop up a new video, is that going to be a problem? Or
They haven't said anything, but
Actually, the difficulty in video is not to actually produce it, is that if you want to really do it consistently, you have to do it for every version, meaning update, and localize it, meaning for all key languages. Good luck with that. And for all platforms, meaning you're not going to put an iPhone video for an iPad, right? Because it's not going to look good. So when you think about all the steps that you have to go through to do a good working video, that's a hell of a... Again, whoever knows how to do that at scale is sitting on a tons of money. So maybe an Animoto-like company or something like that, dedicated, and you know, and they, you know, and if it's done well, I think it's, you know, it's improved the conversion.
Who has a video camera? Let's do this.
He just started a new company.
Maybe I seeded an idea to a future YouTube.
So we've been talking a lot, and I think we have 10 more minutes. We'd love to hear from you. Do you have any questions? A microphone is coming to you. Wait.
Thank you. Very stimulating conversation. My question is basically, Tim Cook this year said that the App Store has 1.2 million apps, and I just looked it up. On the web page, the web reached 1 million apps in 1997, and Google was founded in 1998. So, what are your thoughts on the possibility of building a search service that directly bypasses the App Store, has direct links to individual apps, and focuses on putting relevant app results in front of the users? What are the challenges? Like, would a user actually use this service?
Unfortunately, I will have to answer that question. All right, so first on the number. Apple has rounded up the number. The actual number of live application, I'm sure you know that too, is about 1,120,000, but still
27.
Yeah. This is the data guy. So, but you know, we all know they round it. They always round. Yeah. So it's still a lot of apps. Creating a search or whatever app discovery service works only. You are constrained to Apple guidelines. So if you want to do it right, you have to be a native app. Otherwise, the experience sucks as a web app. You're not going to be able to provide, for example, the seamless kind of overlay to install the app. You're going to be dropped to the App Store and then come back to it. It's going to be painful. You have to also educate users on how to put your service on the home screen, which forget about it. And even if it's, you know, Safari and everything. So you have to be a native app. And if you are a native app, you have to follow a certain number of guidelines. Anyone who's tried it, right? Anyone who's tried it has either failed by Apple clamping down on them, or by executing poorly, or by being absolutely irrelevant, because that's very, very, very hard to produce relevant search results, discovery data, without data. Right, so you know it's a kind of chicken and egg. How do you get the relevance of user data without user data? So how
the algorithm, basically.
Yeah? So we were getting there. We were, you know, 12 million downloads. We generated 2 billion recommendations, 500 million search queries. So we were getting there, but Apple.
Okay, thank you.
Well, there's one quick follow-up that I actually have on this. Why would you? I already have one. Why would you actually want to build a search engine on top of a company that closes everything down? So I think if you want to monetize that search engine, you will monetize it, let's say, the Google way with ads or sponsored searches. Apple will never allow you to do that. So I think the incentive is so low and the requirements and limitations are so big that it would be very difficult, even now with so many apps, to do that.
It would have happened by now if it were going to. It just seems like if it were possible or a good idea business-wise, it would have happened by now.
Exactly. We know for a fact it isn't. In the back. Good exercise.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for being so inspiring. But it's just, I have something strikes me. Nobody mentioned the one feature that's been missing forever, and it's the way for developers to respond to comments. And I
think we gave up on it.
No, but seriously, I mean, because we're talking about like helping out. I mean, a bit of the scope here is helping out like indie developers and stuff. And I think making videos, and I think Ouriel, you're totally right with the video. And
I'm always right.
Yeah, basically.
And he's very modest.
No, yeah, that's what we like. But so it's a great tool, but it's going to be really costly. Whereas like being able to respond to comments, it's something that's free. And that everyone should expect from indie or like big developers, every vendor, to have a chance to demonstrate and show the care and love they put in their product and the respect they have for their users. And I'm talking about like a real life experience, because nobody's perfect except Ouriel. But we once introduced a bug that happened to affect some users, but actually many. And it was really, we were getting hammered, and we asked an expedited review to Apple. They give it to us, but like for a whole weekend, these guys were like, I mean, having their worst weekend ever. And there was no way we could tell people, hey guys, we know we got something wrong here, but we're on it, and here's a workaround. And yeah, and that's really damaging for the customer experience overall that Apple is advocating for. And yeah, as a whole, I mean, that's really, yeah, I don't know.
That's actually absolutely true. Do any of you have experience with the Google Play and responding to?
Well, we can go back to that, but yeah,
Okay.
you just explained the
Put that
one
on
use
hold.
case where us being able to respond to a comment makes sense. The problem is it wouldn't stop there. I think the worst thing you could do is give developers the opportunity to respond to reviews, because I think what we're going to do is try to defend ourselves, and that's going to make us sound desperate. And I think I mean, like I said, when it's a bug, when it's a critical, like you just explained the one use case where it's like, if that's the situation, I would love to have it. I would love to be able to say, you know, this review is completely inaccurate, you know, because how many times does that happen where a person says, oh, it doesn't do this? And it's like, well, yes, it does. But like for me, you're just better off not going down that rabbit hole. It's like comments on a blog. I've just found that it's better to just simply not engage in that way, because you're only going to get into a long fight that everyone else reading back and forth isn't interested in. And I don't know. I just think it's one of those things that it's a really slippery slope. Again, if we could do it in very special circumstances, I don't know how Apple could limit that. That'd be great. But overall, I think it would do more harm than good if we just had access to respond to any review that came in.
I think, though, that that's like self-restraint on your part to not use a feature poorly, and you'll look poorly anyway, so you'll evolutionarily weeded out. We'll hire somebody else to respond to the comments. So the Google Play Store added this feature, and I actually launched a product on the Google Play Store the day after they added the feature. I was so excited because I knew I was going to get tons of these kinds of it didn't work in these scenarios things. I needed feedback from users actually with it. And the Google Play Store, it's actually infuriating, because you respond to the comment and the user gets an email. And then the user doesn't really have a way to respond. And so you can't, and so then they go and they edit their comment, because what happens is you go back and you try to like change the, and so they end up editing their comment. You don't get notifications that they did that. And then if you edit your response, they don't get a notification, and they have no way of even seeing it at that point. And so you get this like horribly stilted, like you're pretty much responding, and your sole goal is to get them to switch to some other communication medium than trying to continue using the comment system. But they're not going to do that because they're already using it.
Exactly.
And Apple will never give us that ability.
Direct communication, you mean?
Yeah, like if we could speak privately to the person
Yeah.
and solve their problem, but they're not going to give us their email. I mean, that's, you know, I'm glad they don't either. That's it's a privacy issue. But yeah, exactly. So I've heard the Google method is, I like that they're trying to find a way to do it, but it doesn't sound like it's working out.
For me, it enters under a bigger chapter, which is the review system of the App Store, which is broken in so many ways, which can be gamed in so many ways. And the few things like the fact that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-star rating for me doesn't make any sense. Like should be either good or bad, or maybe you have a more granular, like on YouTube you have good and bad videos, and you can see the architecture of that. Number 2 is identity, so you have absolutely no idea. I mean, I don't want to see the emails or the name of the real contact point of the user, but I want to see a real reliable way to know that this user is not a fake ghost in whatever, in Philippines or whatever. And number 3 is the CRM logic of the commenting system, which we touched about, which is, all right, I can have a conversation with my users, which threads in an intelligent way, which is scalable for me as a developer, because if I get 100,000 reviews, I can't manage that, and which lets my users answer back and have this conversation. And it's true that in so many cases, a bug, but so many times you get bad reviews because it's absolutely not your app. The users that got a bad Wi-Fi connection and they think your app is broken. But no, it's not. It's not related to that. And a lot of that could be actually handled by the developer if they were 2 of those things. Number 1, a good feedback system in the app. If any user had an obvious way to contact the developer directly and say, hey, there's a problem with your app, and here is the problem, here's a screenshot, here's a blah, blah, blah. A few companies, one of the services that we provide is doing that, and that would be first dropping dramatically the number of unnecessary reviews. And the number two thing is, what's the number two already?
No number two thing.
Well, that was a good start, right? Anyway, a good feedback system in the app, and a new commenting system in the App Store, which is CRM oriented, and not just like can review after another. We don't know who.
Well, it shouldn't be a feedback loop, number one, in my opinion, and two, it should be moderated somehow. And Apple should moderate it, and that's going to become a problem.
That was the number 3 that I was touching. It's moderation. I think Apple doesn't get there because of moderation issues, and we all know Apple with consumer services is not.
I actually agree with Joe on this. I think they shouldn't. They shouldn't make this possible. They should enable some sort of direct communication, and it doesn't have to be through email.
Right, that's true.
It can be an internal system that's in iTunes Connect, and you log in, maybe you get an email or something like that. It doesn't expose any identities, but at least you know maybe their device type and maybe some other information that can help you identify a bug. And I think we're running out of time. Do we have one more? No, that's it. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.